What's up guys? So in this video I wanted to outline what steps I took to get this Yamaha 115 here running. So about a year ago it died on me in the Sac River and it wouldn't fire up, and yeah, it's been a year and I finally got it running. You know, I had even two guys that were pretty mechanically inclined to look at it and they couldn't quite pinpoint what it was. So I tried a bunch of things, so I wanted to outline how I finally got it running and what steps to check if you guys have a similar issue that I had. This motor is a Yamaha 115 4-stroke. It's 2002 and fuel injected. So my initial research led me to that I had a fuel issue with the motor since it would crank over but wouldn't fire up. And so initially I thought it was the VST. So this is the old VST motor, and if you look in here, if you have a similar motor, it's tucked back into there and you have to basically take off your intake manifold and all these bolts holding this together. And right here on top of here is a filter that can get clogged. And so that's what I initially thought was my issue. So I replaced the VST motor and cleaned the filter with it, but that still didn't fix my issue. So I started digging around in the motor more, and I have this cover removed here, but here's your fuse panel, and this fuse in particular right here, every time I would turn the key to the on position, this fuse is a 20 amp fuse and it would blow every time. So on the back of the fuse panel, it shows the 20 amp fuse at the bottom, which is the fuse that kept blowing, and that fuse powers all 5 of those: the ECU, the coils, the fuel pump, the fuel injectors, and the ISC. I'm saying this is the right way to do it. I'm sure there's other ways to test each component, but I basically bought a 100 pack of fuses and isolated each electrical component that was powered by the 20 amp fuse and tried turning the key to the on position to see if I unplugged each individual component if the fuse would blow. So that fuse powered the ignition coils here. I tried unplugging each of these coils and turning the key to the on position, but the fuse kept blowing. You know, I also tried the fuel injectors. These are actually all new fuel injectors that I tried, and I unplugged each one and would turn the key to the on position, but the fuse kept blowing. And then down in here you have your ISC, or sometimes called IAC. It's an idle air control, and I unplugged that and the fuse kept blowing. I also unplugged this wire here that goes to the VST motor and turned the key to the on position and it still blew the fuse. And then lastly, the ECU is right here, but if you unplug that, obviously you're not going to have any power to it, so that one's kind of a hard one to test. But the ECU itself is actually connected to the starter relay right here, and that one actually, unplugging that and turning the key to the on position didn't blow the fuse. So I had thought that that was my issue. So here's a starter relay, and I even purchased a new one and put it in and tried firing it up, but it was still blowing the 20 amp fuse. So here's the ignition switch. I actually even replaced the ignition switch because the wires were pretty corroded. I thought I might have a short somewhere, but even with the new ignition switch, it still was blowing the 20 amp fuse. So with the help of some other fellow boaters, using a voltmeter, a guy I met helped me test every electrical component powered by the 20 amp fuse to see if they were getting 12 volts, and every component was getting 12 volts. So really the last thing that's powered by the 20 amp fuse is the ECU right here. And so that's the most expensive part, obviously. And you know, ultimately I was hoping it wasn't the issue, but I took the old ECU and sent it in to get inspected. So here's my old ECU, and I'd sent it in to get diagnosed, and I was hoping they could repair it, but ultimately I was told that there was a hole in the PC board and that it was non-functional and I would need a new one. So I purchased a secondhand ECU off eBay, and doing more research, I found out that the IAC or ISC, is the idle air control component, was probably the piece that caused the ECU to fail. And so here's the old one here, and I guess over time this can malfunction and somehow it's independently linked to the ECU. So if this goes bad, this can fry your ECU. So I believe that's what happened with this motor. So I replaced the ECU and replaced the IAC or ISC component, and turning the key to the on position, finally, now this fuse right here didn't blow. I made this video to help people if you have a similar Yamaha motor that's blowing fuses. You can use the steps that I took to try to fix your motor. In my case, it was the most expensive fix, the ECU, but yeah, a new one costs around almost like 1,500 bucks, but I was able to get a used one on eBay for a lot cheaper. So yeah, if you guys like these types of videos, please like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.